Welcome back to the interview, and my special guest today is 8-Bit Thoughts. He has a YouTube channel, and the reason we're talking today is that I wanted to talk about the state of modern dating, and 8-Bits is a dating coach, so I thought he's the man to talk to. How are you, mate?
Yeah, really good, mate. Pretty hungover from last night, to be honest. But apart from that, good.
There he was out exercising his dating prowess. So you want to tell us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm a dating coach based in Brisbane, Australia. I've been coaching for just coming up on 7.5 years. I've had my own business coaching for about 6.5 years, and I've just recently started another business with another dating coach. So I've got the two now.
All right. So you said 7.5 years. So why don't you give us a sort of a profile of your clients? Like, what are their range, like age ranges and affluence levels, and what are they kind of looking for?
Well, generally speaking, they're all fucking white males. Um, the main age group is sort of 21 to about 35 is the majority.
Mm.
Usually middle class, but I also have quite a few corporate clients, and those guys are usually 40 plus, doing very, very well. Most of them are divorced.
Uh,
As far as the younger guys go, they're usually either in university or out of university with their first or second job.
mm.
And they're all generally really, really nice guys because I do screen my clients. I don't like clients that just want to go out and slay pussy and just
Right.
treat women like shit. I don't want to be associated with that. But most of them have either some sort of self-esteem issue, or they're just not confident with women. They just haven't had the guts or the practice to get themselves out there
Mm.
and give it a go, really.
Right. And so you said it's interesting you said that they're the over 40s, because I would have thought by that age, if, as you say, if they're doing well financially and career-wise, then they should be almost a shoe-in, shouldn't they? What's their problem?
Yes, but the type of girl that they would get are generally the gold diggers.
Right.
Now, usually these are guys that have been burnt in a divorce, have lost a lot of money, obviously haven't been dating for, say, 12 years. So they're just really out of practice,
Right.
and they sort of want to go back to having a bit of fun, fuck being married for a while. Let's just go out there, date some people, maybe have some casual relationships and all that sort of stuff. But generally their self-esteem is quite good, with the exception of really bad divorces. Sometimes they can be really quite down and just bitter at women,
Mm-hmm.
which is unfortunate,
Yeah.
but understandable as well. So with them, it doesn't take quite as much. It's really more about changing their mindsets and just getting the ball rolling again.
Mm. How do you combat bitterness?
Um, it's not an easy question to answer because it's something that takes quite a bit of time. I guess it's just through life coaching and having them become aware of their emotions, why they have come to feel that particular way, and how to change their train of thought so they're not thinking negatively.
Right.
Rather than focusing on the negative stuff, focus on, hey, I'm single now, I can go out and do what I want, and I don't have some bitch at home nagging me to take out the trash.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Yeah. It's I guess if you're coming at it, you're a single guy, but you're made. You got plenty of money. You've got a good career. I guess you've got to be on your guard these days for gold diggers. As much as we hear about the strong, independent woman that don't need no man, plenty of them still want to depend on a man, don't they?
Yeah, and I've actually noticed that you get more gold diggers at an older age. I think most young women don't care as much. It definitely helps. Like if you're a millionaire, you're going to clean up. But I think because women that are a little bit older have gone quite a while without being, I guess, completely financially free, I guess would be the word.
Yep.
They're the ones who sort of would like to settle down and have that security there.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty then. So we've covered the basic client. Now, what are you observing out in the dating world, and how do you arm your clients to meet it?
Pardon me. The first thing I've noticed is dating is very, very dishonest nowadays. It might have been in the, as the trad cons would say, the golden era of the 50s. But people aren't honest about their intentions. They're not honest with themselves about what they want. They're not honest in the sense that they see someone that they're attracted to, but they don't approach them, which is a form of dishonesty.
Yeah.
There's also a really, really big lack of guys taking action.
All right.
I think your alpha male type guys are generally pretty good. They don't have a problem with going up to a chick in a bar or something like that. But approaching a girl on the street, for example, is a rarity, especially amongst guys who don't have confidence. And even if they do, I've seen so many times where guys will get a phone number, get that win, but won't end up texting her or calling her because they're scared that they might fuck it up, which I don't know how they do that mental gymnastics, but it's very, very common.
Yeah, well, if you've had if you've I mean, getting the number, that's the work, really. I mean,
well, that's the easy part. Yeah. It's getting in bed with them that's the hard part.
Oh, I actually used to think it was the other way around. If I could get their number, I was in. It was just
well, that means you knew what you were doing.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's interesting to hear you say dishonest, because I think, and as I said to you before we went live, I haven't dated in Australia since 2001, because I've been living overseas until I came back this year. So I don't really know what the dating scene is like, and I've been headfirst into this YouTube channel, and it doesn't even come up on my fucking radar, to be honest. But and plus I'm in my 40s, and my
need help with it. I know a guy who can sort you out.
Yeah, I just don't have the motivation right now. Where was I going with that? But I was going to say, yeah, with honesty. Here's what. Is there another problem? This is something that I sort of suspect, is that you said people are reticent to approach women for a start, so that's a form of dishonesty. But what about the idea that men then try and be who they think the woman wants them to be, rather than just being their authentic self?
Happens all the time. I mean, the level of disingenuousness, is that a word?
Yeah, I think so.
Is incredible.
It is now.
You get your white knights who think they need to protect the women's and just let themselves get walked all over. Then you've got the guys who don't have much confidence, who try and act like, the bad boy, and rather than just be the person you are. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a beta male, an alpha male, or just your average guy.
Yeah.
Whatever you are, just own it and be proud of it.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to pretend to be someone you're not, because you can only keep up that long before those little traits start coming out, and she sees them.
Yeah.
And you'll go back to the normal person that you were, and she'll realize that you're not the type of person that she's attracted to, and then she'll leave you.
Yeah. Yeah. I just thought it was funny. I was thinking of an incident before we got on here where I remember I was at a party in Sydney. This is 16 years ago, and you get talking to a girl, and this would be a common thing that someone would say to you: "Are you a nice guy?" Because they can't figure you out, right? Are you a nice guy? And I said something like, "Oh no, I've never been accused of that before," and that they like that, because I got this. I don't know. So this is going back 15 years or so ago, but guys were always falling over themselves to compliment women and to try and demonstrate how nice they are. And I actually used to do the complete opposite of that, which is I I'm not going to compliment you because you did your hair or you got a nice pair of shoes on, because that's not really an accomplishment. And I'm
No,
not, and
it's all superficial.
it's superficial, and it's the easiest thing to do is to give a woman a compliment. But to say something funny and make them
Yeah.
laugh takes skill, and it really, the easiest way to I've ever known to turn a woman onto you is to make them laugh and be, as you say, like I if I were to honestly evaluate myself, I would say that I can be a nice guy, but I'm not really.
Yeah.
I'm not an asshole, but and so I'm not going to lie to a woman and say, "Oh yeah, I'm wonderful, and I'll take you out, and if I can treat you like a princess," because I won't. Because quite frankly, one, you're probably not worth it. No woman, I think, is worth putting on a pedestal, and two, it's just disingenuous, as you said. It's not genuine.
Yeah. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but the more sort of fucked up your jokes are and that you get away with and you pull off with tact, the better. Like, I seriously make dead baby jokes. I make rape jokes. And if you deliver it in the right way, it's hilarious because, reducto ad or absurdo or whatever that Latin term is.
Yeah.
You just make it so extreme and ridiculous that it's obviously a joke. And, it's panty dropping stuff. Humor is fantastic. Humor and confidence are pretty much the only two things you need. You could have everything else shithouse and you'd still clean up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's, yeah. Well, mate, it's just given me some confidence. I might have to go out. I might have to get back on the internet and get onto some dating. But maybe that's an interesting one.
Oh, don't do online dating.
Well, see, that's interesting, right? Because now I started online dating when back in the late 90s, like 1999, I think I started.
So RSVP and...
Yep. So basically what you had to do was you would click on a photo, go make yourself a cup of tea, and you'd come back and it'd be downloaded, right? That's how slow the internet was. And I was a early starter on internet dating, and I used it before I left Australia, and then I used it extensively overseas because when you go to a place like I lived in Japan, often it's difficult when you don't know the language. So going online and finding girls that speak English, which there are plenty of, is one of your best ways to do it. But so I was in I'm going to get to the question, believe me, but I was in a chat with No Holds Barred, and he made this observation. He's a young guy, I think he's about 27, 28, and he said that online dating, like something like Tinder, which I've never been on, and I know what it is, but I've never been on it. But he said that has made dating even worse because that's magnified. It's not an 80-20. It's like a 95-5. So you've got, if you're an attractive girl, half attractive girl, you would get thousands of fucking emails, and most of the men get nothing. And so it's magnified that sort of, in a pub, in a face-to-face setting where you have, it's the old 80-20 rule where 80% of the time the men will make the approach and maybe 20% of the time the women. But online it's magnified. It's even worse, so that most, men make all the approaches and pretty much women don't do any because they don't have to, because they're inundated.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with a bit of history. If you look at, say, the 40s and 50s, you had to meet a girl at a milk bar, approach her, get her phone number, call her from your home phone when her parents will probably answer it. Mm-hmm. She'll have no privacy. You got to drive 20 minutes to pick her up from her house. You got to have her back by 10. You meet the parents, all that sort of stuff. It took a lot of work.
Yeah.
Whereas now we're all so closely interconnected, and you pick up your phone and you've got 1,000 girls available within 5 kilometers of you on Tinder. And it is absolutely a seller's market. And like, you don't even have to be attractive on Tinder. You can be a bush pig,
right,
and you'll still get heaps of hits. Like, it's just that much of a scarcity mindset for men and an abundance mindset for women.
Mm.
And because it's weighted so much in that sort of 95-5,
Yeah.
is women are putting in absolutely zero effort.
Mm-hmm.
I use Tinder, but it's mostly just for, hookups and all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
But some of the girls you'll be chatting to, and you'll be delivering some really good banter, some really well-crafted, fun jokes, flirting and all that sort of stuff. And they'll just send it back just really lazy, boring, uninteresting messages. So even if they say, yeah, I'm happy to go out, a lot of the time I just think, do I even want to waste my time with you? Because I don't know if I'm going to be able to stand you. You've just got such a shitty attitude towards this.
Well, maybe...
And
Yeah.
Tinder has made things a lot worse, because a chick can go out on a date with a guy. If it doesn't go well, she could be in the bathroom and looking for new guys on Tinder. It just creates such an abundance mindset that women are willing to throw men away for almost nothing.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe that's a good sort of way to move the discussion on, because it gets to this idea of expectations. And maybe before we get to the research that people who are listening to this may have seen my video, Man Up, Woman Down, and the crux of the title of that video is that should men man up and get married? Because it was in response to that Prager University marriage. But then the second half of the video was about woman down. Is that will women have to downgrade their expectations about men, because there are certain underlying trends going on in society. For example, 60% of college graduates are women, and if trend continues, it'll be 2/3 in 10 or 15 years. Yeah. So you're going to have men that are less educated, probably on average earning less money than women, unless they get themselves into a trade or something like that. And the expectations of women at the same time, if anything, are going up, what they want. And so the pool of eligible men, and when I say eligible, I mean eligible by the expectations of women, not because these men aren't good enough, because women have certain expectations. For example, they want a man, it's very important for them to have a man that has a good job and pays well. But if men are less educated, then that's less likely. And they have all these other expectations. They want to get married more than men do. They want to have families more than men do. But yet the men don't measure up to their other expectations. So given that, how does that manifest in today's dating world? Do you think that women have higher expectations than men?
Yes, they definitely do. Their expectations are becoming increasingly higher as time goes on, I've noticed as well. But the other part in this that we may not have brought up is, now we spoke about this in one of the other streams we did on safe schools. One of the most common responses I get when I tell people or women I'm a dating coach is, oh, I'm so glad you're doing that. It's so good that men will be better at dating. The level of fucking arrogance in that comment.
Yeah.
I mean, the narcissism that they expect that they treat themselves as if they're these princesses and that men need to, work really hard to get them is just fucked. It's not an equal relationship.
No.
And this is why I don't coach women, because whenever I try and give a girl advice, rather than her listening to my arguments and going, yep, okay, I'll take your advice on board, they just keep asking the same question over and over again until they get the response they want. There's no desire for them to improve themselves to improve their dating life. Men have to improve themselves to improve their dating life. It's just so narcissistic.
Now, some of this is biological. That is that women are traditionally the gatekeepers. So, men knock on the door and they go, no, 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 yes. Women are supposed to be, at least we've evolved, that women are more selective, right? But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there are certain underlying social trends, for example, that women have obviously a lot more agency than they used to, say, 50 years ago. No-fault divorce, the pill, when you get into marriage. Of course, the courts abortion, the courts are stacked in their favor when it comes to marriage and things like that. But there's also this underlying, this sort of really, I think, quite toxic idea, for example, that women don't, like, you're supposed to accept me however I like. And that means if I'm really fat, if I'm, if I wear my hair in a certain way, I have all these feminist ideas about what you're supposed to do. That society, because we've had this culture for, I don't know, 20, 25 years, where we've told women that they're constantly wonderful, that they can do anything a man can do, even though they don't, and they can do it better, and they're all wonderful and they're all beautiful, that they actually have inflated expectations of themselves, and that actually makes the sort of the dynamic even worse.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. I actually saw a meme was sent to me by one of my former coaches, and it's a couple sitting on a couch having a chat. Her, I don't like these things about you. You need to change. Him, okay, but here are some things you could change. Her, if you can't accept me as I am, we shouldn't be together.
Oh, that sums it up.
Like, it just fucking hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, that just hits it out of the park, doesn't it? Yeah, I mean that's, and then I remember the last girlfriend I had in Japan, where it was winters are pretty cold over there, and my usual thing is I exercise a fair bit and keep in good shape, but in the winter I get a bit lazy and too many cups of tea and dip in the Tim Tams, and so and the girlfriend was a little bit lazy too, and I was sort of saying, we could be in better shape. This is the way I approached it. Not you could be in better shape. We could be in better. And I actually meant we.
Tactful.
Yeah, I actually meant that we, because I needed to do a little bit more exercise myself. It was actually true. I wasn't just having a go at her. And, the next thing you know, what are you saying? And like within a minute, she's in tears. Then she's telling me that you can't say those types of things to girls. And I said, do you? And I said to her, and this wasn't far until we broke up, and I said, do you understand how unbelievably sexist that statement is? Like, I turned it around on her. I wasn't going to. And I said, like, so you're saying it's actually okay to talk about, a male being out of shape, your partner, and encouraging him to do something about it. And by the way, I didn't say, hey, fat bitch, get up off your ass. I was saying, hey, we should get out more and do some more exercise. It was trying to be positive about it. And so I said, so you're saying that can't be said to a woman, but it's okay to be said to a man, and yet, you're all about equality. And, it just had her, and she did the whole thing of let's change the subject and all that kind of thing, because that's what they do when they're caught out. And so I find this, there's this double standard, as you've said, where women talk, I shouldn't say women, feminists in particular talk about equality.
Yeah, hashtag not all women to those listening.
Talk about equality. But then if you actually treat them equal, I mean, if you were to treat them like you treat your mates, they absolutely hate it, right?
Yeah. I'm one of the girls I'm seeing at the moment, we're not exclusive, but she's a cool chick. She's quite masculine in a lot of ways. Yeah. Which I wouldn't usually be attracted to. I do like that feminine, crazy, you never know what's going to happen type energy. But
so you mean
she really
she's
is,
you mean she's got a dick? Is that what you're trying to say?
Virtually, yeah. It doesn't penetrate me, but it's definitely there.
Oh.
Well, the reason I've been seeing her for so long is because she is an equal.
Right.
She'll call me a cunt. I'll call her a cunt.
Yeah.
And we have a laugh about it and everything's all good. But I don't know if I could ever be in a relationship with her, because it would be like dating myself. I can't put up with me most of the time.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting dynamic, isn't it? Because it goes back to this thing I think we brought up on a previous stream, whereas for a woman, virtually all she has to do is show up, right? And look attractive. I mean, that's where men have to come armed with humor, intellect, charisma,
looks,
maybe money as well, doesn't go astray. Confidence. But a woman just has to stand there and go, what are you having there for drink? Could I have one of those? You know, and doesn't, and all her job is to sit there and be impressed by you or not. She doesn't have to be impressive.
She doesn't even need to get out of bed. With Tinder, she can message a guy and say, here's my address, and I guarantee you he'll be getting every speeding fine on the way there.
Yeah. So this is sort of where I sort of think biology is just overwhelms everything. So it doesn't matter if you educate men to say, look, guys, raise your standards. Don't accept, lazy women who,
Yeah, definitely.
But see, there's always that guy who's like, fuck that. I mean, I'll zip in there if I can, Like, I used to say to my mates when I was...
I think we're all like that at some points. I mean, if it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm hammered and I know no one's going to know about it, yeah, I'll drop my standards a bit.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to quickly mention, which is kind of relevant, is there's this attitude that men are just all assholes, all we want is sex and all that sort of stuff. But having spent so much time dating, talking to women about dating, being a coach and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
the shittiest, cuntiest behavior comes from women.
Right.
I mean, the way women, I've seen them use and manipulate guys and laugh about it is just incredible. But when guys do it, usually it's, oh, yeah, I'll bang her and I just won't call her again.
Yeah.
That's sort of the level of things that happen. So this concept of men being pigs is just bullshit.
Yeah.
And I want to make it clear that this is not all women. Most women are not like this. But the few that have these bad behaviors are far more badly behaved than men are, in my experience.
Yeah, well, it doesn't surprise me. I think being as old as I am and knowing what I know now would have been very valuable in my early 20s, because you don't, I think as a man, you take a lot at face value and sort of, I don't know, I was always just fairly straight up and honest with people, and you don't realize the extent to which women play games. Not until you've had an extensive amount of experience. I've been married. I've been married and divorced.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm not.
No, I mean, I'm sorry you got married in the first place.
Yeah, well, I mean, I didn't even really want to. It was just a bad decision all around, really. But
yeah, I've heard that from Dad, believe it or not.
Yeah, but I mean, I came out the other side and I'm fine, and I didn't have kids, and I didn't have a sort of messy settlement. There was no, she didn't take half my shit. There was none of that. It was fairly amicable.
No, that's good.
It was about as amicable as it could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's certain, women have developed this sort of manipulation ability because, well, what else were they going to develop? They couldn't develop physical strength.
Yeah, so they can't win in a fight.
No, so they had to develop some other means of getting what they want. And so they have the pussy, they have that, and they have their powers of manipulation.
Yeah.
And I think it's...
Which is all you need to get by, really.
And I think it's just sad that it takes men and young men... I'm glad there are people like you doing what you do, because you can inform young men of the sort of the games that women engage in. It's unfortunate it takes till you're, my age or so to realise it. And you can just see it, happening in real time. Whereas when you're young, you're not hip to it. You don't really get what's going down, which is unfortunate.
It's funny. A lot of the guys that obviously are not my clients, one of the biggest things that they say is, as if guys need that. Like,
right.
If you can't get a lot of girls, then you're a pussy. Now, there are some guys that I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with you on some respects. You're obviously actually good, but it never comes from your alpha males. It only comes from the guys that are sort of in the middle,
right, who
try to convince themselves that they're good with women. And I always just laugh at it because I'm like, I know you a fucking shithouse at this, mate.
Yeah.
Give it 5-10 years and you're going to be miserable as fuck.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had to be content with the fact that I didn't I wasn't the guy that walked in the room and turned heads. I had to have game. I had to have humor and intelligence. Say something.
Yeah, I was exactly the same.
So it wasn't. I'm not. I mean, I was a sportsman. I was good at sport and I was in good shape, but I was not Sean Connery, where all the heads turned when you walked in the room. I had to have game, and that's. I think that's. I mean, I don't know what it's like. There are very few guys. I actually went to school with one guy who was that guy. He walked in the room and the girls just went, "Oh fuck," and he didn't really have to do anything. But there's not many guys that are like that. Really,
Yeah.
I mean, most, and even the equivalent girl is going to get much more attention than the equivalent good-looking guy, right? The equivalent good-looking guy still has to do some work.
What you'll find is a lot of the good-looking guys do have good game. They're, great sense of humor, confidence, because they've had a lot of female attention. It's elevated their self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of being more confident, you're more relaxed when you go to make a joke, so you can refine your sense of humor better. So yeah, most guys that are good looking are generally really quite good.
Right.
Now, what's embarrassing to admit is I was the biggest white knight beta male faggot before I was 21. It was embarrassing looking back at some of the things I said and did.
But I
passed out.
I wanted to see.
Nearly doxed myself.
20 years ago, I was 22. So in the early 90s, I was, came of age. I could drink and everything legally. Now, I don't remember the White Knight. The White Knight was very few and far between. I don't really. It
Really?
seems to be a modern sort of incarnation. The type of people that Bering argues with. Those guys, those
Yep.
male feminists. Now, I don't even remember when I was in university. I don't remember any female feminists. There probably were some, but it wasn't a thing. It wasn't. There may have been a feminist organisation at my uni. I didn't know about it. No one knew about it. No one went around saying they were feminists. No one. This seems to be a modern incarnation. And when I see a Michael, what is it? That guy? You know the guys I'm talking about that Bering has arguments.
Michael
with?
Rowland?
Michael Rowland's it takes a nanosecond to realize what that guy is, right? Just a weak beta trying his best to get laid by being nice to girls, and it comes off. He exudes weakness. That's what it is.
Yeah, doesn't he?
But where does this?
And it's painful to watch.
Yeah, where does this come from? Where does this originate from?
Well, if you were at uni back in the early 90s, that was when third wave feminism started to gain force. And I suppose it was probably mid 2000s that it really started becoming popular, and the left really took a stranglehold on everything, really. And I was definitely raised to say, if you're going to take a girl out, you need to open the door for her, give her compliments. I was raised by a single mum, so that explains it. Now, I can't give any evidence to back up that third wave feminism is directly related to the explosion of, I guess, white knights, but I do think it is a factor, and a fairly big one.
So basically,
that's just an assertion.
Yeah. So because I think when you look at a lot of what feminism does to men, it employs shaming tactics, and
absolutely,
it works on some males, and I think maybe the fact that I've been absent from Western culture for 15 years it's sort of frozen me in time. So when I come back and I see the way women talk to men, I'm kind of like, you're going to sit there and take that? You're gonna let that woman talk to you like that, or you're just? It's not that you're letting her talk to you like that, but it's you're not going to respond with anything other than a hung head and a shameful look on your face.
The thing is, if you've got weak boundaries and you let women walk all over you like that, you can be the nicest person in the world and she will never respect you.
Of course not. Yeah, of course not.
Should we jump into some of that Pew research? and have a look at how marriage and things have changed.
Yeah, well, I think one of the biggest points of that Pew Research poll now, I think it may be 3 years old now. I didn't even go back and look at the video myself, but this came out of now. I don't know if you've seen this article. Milo Yiannopoulos wrote an article in 2014, I think, called "The Sexodus," and this is when he kind of took the idea of MGTOW public for the first time. I think it was the first time publicly written about. Now, he doesn't really throw out any data or statistics. It's very much anecdotal. Here's a couple of guys and here's what they're saying about dating and why they're not doing it. And by the way, these guys aren't losers. They're good-looking guys. They've got confidence. They're smart, but they've just opted out. But the one data point he did throw in was this data point where the number of men and women surveyed who said that marriage was important goal for their life had swung from something like 35% male and 34% female. The males had dropped to 27% and the females had gone up to 36%. And so there was this 9% gap, now which doesn't sound like a lot, but in a population the size of the United States, and that was a 18 to 34-year-old cohort, you're talking about millions of people. You're talking about millions of women who are expecting to get married for which there are no partners. That's one thing. Assuming that those survey numbers held up in real life, because often what people say on surveys and what they actually do is quite different. But there's this gap opening up, an expectation gap of men who think it's important to get married, women who think it's important to get married. On top of that, you'd layer in the expectations about what women want. And as I mentioned before, having a good, well-paying job is really important for women. It's not for men. And in fact, the only expectation where men and women are about on a par is levels of education. That is to say, they want someone with approximately the same level of education as them. But on every other metric, women are more picky. Their expectations are higher, which, as we said, has some biological roots, and it's not a bad thing that women are more picky. But this dynamic in society, that worked well in a society where men had this sort of financial power. They don't anymore. Women are more educated. Women have at least as much financial power if they don't opt to take time out of the workplace to have children. So there's this expectation gap opening up where what women want and what's out there, there's a bit of a gap there. And of course, there's going to be some men to fulfill some of those women, but a lot of those women aren't going to find what they want. And the implication is that they will not get married, and that a lot of men won't get married. Now, the trends suggest that who's not getting married are low education people, and that college educated women actually, their marriage rates have hung in there and done actually better over time. But non-educated women and men, their marriage rates are falling off quite significant. And actually, they are the ones who traditionally did the best, got married the most. And now, you wanted to bring in that the fact that divorce rates have sort of leveled off, marriage rates have picked up,
decline,
but then back down again.
Yep.
So, given these expectations, my theory is that if it continues, less and less people will get married because there's a mismatch between expectations. But what's your take?
I think that's definitely the case. I've got the data in front of me now because I reread it today just to prepare for this. But one of the really, really interesting points that I noticed in this data is that if the trends continue within, I can't remember how many years, but it wasn't a long amount of time, it suggested that 1 in 4 of today's young adults may never marry.
Right.
Now, if that, so in 2030, so if we forward track that to, 100, 200 years, it's starting to look pretty grim.
Yeah.
Which does beg the question, are we going to wipe ourselves out because we all just get fucking sick and tired of each other's shit? I don't think so, because most people biologically want children. I'm certainly not one of those people. But most people are. But what was interesting was I was having a chat with my business partner and my former coach today, asking them what were the pros of marriage. And we spoke for about an hour, and really the only pro they could give me was it gives the illusion of security for the woman, and that would make the man happy, knowing that she is more happy due to this false sense of security. I can't think of any other reason, really, unless you've got a few that I didn't think of.
You mean for either sex or just for men?
For men.
Yeah. Well, you know, as you brought up the TradCon before, now think about, it's a different situation. There was no fault divorce. There was no contraceptive pill. There was no, you know, you can sue the shit out of your partner for everything he has in a divorce court. That you actually custody favored men back then. And for good reason, because men, almost in every single case would have been the breadwinner. So I think marriage made more sense. And this is why I think the Prager University video, well, I really like what PragerU puts out. They're conservatives and they put out a lot of good stuff. But
so do I. But that video was laughable.
Yeah, but that's the thing they don't get, because they were sort of operating as though it was still 1950. And they were talking about and the things that they made factual statements about the fact that you earn more. But who cares when your situation is so precarious? I mean, 40 roughly, it's different, it's difficult. It's about 45% is my understanding divorce rate. And marriages end in divorce. In
Australia it is.
Yeah, and about 70% of those are initiated by women. 2/3 to 70% of those are initiated by women. Now, of the remaining 55% of marriages stay together, I read a piece of research that said that 15% of those are able to sustain the kind of strong, loving feeling they had from the beginning. And so the other 40% of marriages range from pretty good to we fucking hate each other, but we're just staying together for the kids type of arrangement.
Yeah, cheaper to keep her.
Yeah. So if you think about, you know, and you can use the analogy of, let's say I give you a bowl of M&Ms and half of them would make you sick. Not kill you, but make you sick. Would you have one? Well, of course you fucking wouldn't.
Fuck no.
but this is kind of, and the analogy's not a great one, because obviously you can, like me, I got married, got divorced. Thankfully, I got divorced. Thankfully, it didn't cost me anything, and it didn't really, you know, there was no, it wasn't very damaging. Say, you know, I didn't date for 6 months after. I felt pretty shithouse, but then I got back on the horse, and I was fine. And I wasn't upset that it didn't work out, because, quite frankly, in hindsight, I can say it was the best thing that it didn't. But but you can see what I'm saying here. I mean, marriage, and I think there's a very good book written about this. Marriage is a risky proposition for men, but it isn't for women. The risks for men are much higher than they are for women, because, as you say, a woman still gets security. If it fucks up, she will do well out of it.
And I think that most women don't realize that being a single parent is a predictor for a lot of negative outcomes for that child as an adult.
Yeah. We've done no favors by, you know, sort of lionizing the single mom as some sort of warrior out there, you know, being a mom and working. And you know, the reality is most single mums are welfare queens. And as you say,
exactly,
they are the best predictors of, particularly for young men, people who will have higher rates of incarceration, mental health problems, more likely to be violent, suicide, less education, the whole gamut.
Yeah, the list goes on.
So we're not doing anybody any favors by encouraging single motherhood. But see, that's another side effect, I suppose, of this growing expectation gaps, where women, and it's happening today. Like, so an affluent professional woman, she's in her late 30s. She's kind of given up that she will get the guy, but she wants to have a kid, so she'll have a kid because she can afford it, right? She can afford to have the kid. She can afford the daycare. She don't need no man, and and of course the kid will probably do better than some mother that's on welfare because she can afford to send the kid to a private school. But still, that kid is going to do less well than a child that comes from a middle class family with a mother and a father.
Exactly. See, I sort of predict that this whole marriage thing will get worse. I think divorce rates, I can't predict where they're going to go. I think marriage rates are definitely going to continue to drop. And the fact that more men are opting out and just saying, fuck this, I'm sick of this shit, I think there's going to be less of that desire to protect the women's with men's attitudes changing as a result of feminism saying we're all pieces of shit and we should be locked up on an island.
Yeah.
I think it will get worse, but I think it will also reach a tipping point where there has to be some self-aware individual out there, like, Rita Panani, for example, that starts a movement and says, we've gone too far. We need to go back. And I don't know when that tipping point will be or what will cause it, but I do hope that it does for the sake of society.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that I think that's,
and for the sake of my income.
I think you'll be all right, because even if society becomes more fractured, I think someone like you still fills a role there. Your role just evolves more, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it gets that bad that the sexes no longer want anything to do with each other, then your role then becomes more of a life coach in how to cope as a single person, I suppose. You just evolve it.
Or I start teaching gay guys.
I don't think you need to teach gay guys, do you? I mean, that's...
No, not really. The only bit of advice you need to give them is just say, act straight.
Jesus. So, yeah, I guess that's it's going to be interesting to watch. I still feel like our biology will overwhelm us. It's like, I think I spoke with Dave Cullen about this on a live stream. We're talking like, if let's say World War III happens tomorrow, all this feminism and there are 47 different genders and I want you to use this pronoun, that shit just goes out the window, because now we're back to square one. It's about survival. It's about kill or be killed. It's about, eating, just, surviving, basically, getting enough to survive, and all that shit would go out the window and biology would reassert itself, right? Maybe we need some kind of reset like that, which is horrible to think about, because the other part we haven't talked about, I suppose, which is part of the men will retreat more into themselves and women will as well, is that what about artificial technology like the Ex Machina robots? Now, I think they're a long way away. I mean, decades away. I think right now the frontier is virtual reality. You put on your goggles and you pretend that some woman's wanking you off or something. But there's only going to be more and more opportunities for escapism, and not just for men.
Yeah, definitely.
Although men will be the primary users of it. And so that plays into it as well. And the other thing I wanted to say, which I think I said in our last stream, but I'm not sure that I made the point, is that MGTOW often point to Japan to say, oh, look, these are real MGTOWs out here, the grass eaters of Japan. And they bring up this statistic that something like 35% of young Japanese men between the age of 18 and 25 are not interested in dating, right? And
So what does this grass feeders thing mean? I've never understood that.
Herbivore men. It means that they.
Okay.
Yeah, herbivore men. That's how it translates. So it just they because it's about a whole lifestyle. It's not just about you don't want to date women. It's about that they don't work like the traditional Japanese salaryman with a career job. They work enough to pay their rent and their food and their hobby, whatever that is, computer games or whatever, and that's it.
Yep.
They just live a really minimalist lifestyle. But the point about this is the MGTOWs often cite this and say, look, here's 1/3 of the Japanese population going MGTOW and rejecting women. But the bit they don't cite is that there's actually a higher percentage of women doing the exact same thing in the same age groups. Yeah. And my theory, I don't have any evidence of it, is that if men don't lead, women don't step up to fill the gap. Women are not going to fill the void. If men don't step up, then it's not going to happen. And and you may get the odd woman who decides to ante up, but most are not. And so
they're few and far between.
Yeah, and so this is another sort of thorn in the argument that the sexes are equal. Well, quite frankly, if men don't lead and men don't pursue women, then the species pretty much falls apart. And so MGTOW, while I think it is a viable short-term option for men, is for society, it isn't. It is a it's a ecological, evolutionary dead end at the end of the day.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Although sometimes I put on the news and I don't know if that'd be a bad thing if we wiped out half the population.
That's why I can't get excited about climate change, because it's like
we're solving a really big problem here.
Yeah, I heard an astronaut say it once. He said people were going, they're talking about, because they thought the astronaut would obviously be pro, we must do something about climate change. And he said, look, the planet will be fine. We'll be fucked, but the planet will be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
The planet was here before we got here. The planet will be here after we go. The planet will be fine. Stop thinking that you're that important, which is one way to look at it.
Yeah, it's a very narcissistic attitude, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's something else I was going to say, and I completely forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. Now, I do apologize if any MGTOWs are listening, but what I have found with a lot of MGTOWs, hashtag not all, is that a lot of them have had a really bad experience and have ended up quite bitter. So rather than, becoming MGTOW for, it's just economically makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are going there because, their ex-girlfriend cheated on them and they've been burnt a few times before. And, if anyone listening is like that, I would encourage you to give it a crack.
Yeah.
Get back on the horse, have some fun. I mean, you've got a dick, you may as well use it. Sex is great. We all love it. But, maybe avoid the marriage thing if you're not into that. But with that said, I want to make it clear, I'm not completely against marriage. Like, if you want to have a family, I've got no problem with it. Settle down, have your white picket fence and your 2.5 kids and be a good parent and grow for it. But, if you want to go out and just slam chicks at a nightclub and never call them again, then you can do that as well. I think it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're happy and you're not hurting anyone else.
Yeah. Well, what about, so bring this back, and I guess we'll try and wrap it up. We're coming up to an hour.
Yep.
Is that we go back to your client base now? We're trying to, we're making some sort of assumptions about what's going to happen in the future, but men are leaning more away towards marriage. Now, are your clients sort of the men that you meet? They want to get into relationships, they want to meet women, but how many of them, or what percentage of them, really want to go all the way and get married and have kids?
It's funny. I do free consultations with all of my clients where, it's me trying to find out as much as I can about them so I can figure out what I can actually do to help them. Almost 100% of the time, probably 95%, they actually say that they don't want a relationship. They just want to go out and hook up with chicks.
Yeah.
And I always prod them on it and just dig deeper and try and find out, where they're exactly at.
Yeah.
And I reckon maybe 1 in 10 actually mean it. The rest of them want relationships.
Right.
But I've had, and of those guys that do want relationships, I couldn't give you a statistic, unfortunately, because I've never really thought about it. A lot of them will say, yep, I want to get married and have kids. But once they get better
Mm.
and they're able to go to a nightclub and, pull a chick home
Yeah.
and start dating her, they very quickly start changing their attitude towards marriage.
Right.
Um, it's almost as if marriage seems really good if you don't have an abundance, but once you start having an abundance, it doesn't
Right.
look as attractive. I mean,
Yeah.
can you see a guy like Dan Bazillion, or have you pronounced his last name, jumping to get in a relationship and have kids? I would seriously doubt it.
Yeah. 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 Well, that makes sense, doesn't it? Why do you think then that guys who, as you said, 90% say they don't want to be in a relationship, but only 10% of them mean it? Why do you think, are they trying to appear macho, like, hey man, I just want to go out and bang chicks, and that admitting you want to have a relationship is kind of being a soft cock?
I think it's just the media glorifies that party lifestyle so much.
Right.
If you look at, like when I was going through high school, every comedy movie like American Pie and all that sort of shit was about going out, getting shit-faced drunk and hooking up with chicks. And
Right.
as I sort of grew up, you fantasize about that sort of stuff. You think that's what makes you a man. That's what makes you cool.
Yeah.
And, I've been through it, and don't get me wrong, I'll still go out, hit the town, smash more shots than I can handle. And if I can take some chick into a bathroom, I will. But don't think that it's a meaningful life. Yeah, it's fun and it's a cool story to tell your mates, but it's not this glorious, everyone walks around worshipping you. You don't get treated like a god. It's just an extracurricular activity, really. I mean, the real fun is when you've got good friends and you're hanging around them, or when you're in a good relationship.
Yeah.
There's a lot of happiness that comes from that, but just going out, getting shit-faced, banging a chick, and then waking up in the morning trying to kick her out, it's a short hit of cocaine.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a quick fix. It makes you feel good at the time, but there's no ongoing happiness from that.
No, that's...
So yeah, I think it's probably largely due to the media, but I could be wrong.
Oh, it's interesting because I think when I was young, growing up, the comedies were, it was about the sort of the nerdy, or not necessarily nerdy, but sort of the John Cusack type of character who was a bit of an outsider, and in the end he'd get the girl,
Yeah,
or
it's interesting, isn't
so
it?
it wasn't about getting laid per se. I mean, those movies were around, like Animal House or something like that.
Hang on, but were they romantic comedies? Because romantic comedies are usually for chicks.
Some of them, but something like Breakfast Club, which is it's funny, and it just takes place in a school over a course of a day, right? But they hook up. There's like couples that hook up at the end of it. Like Molly Ringwald hooks up with the fucking Emilio Estevez, I think, and do you know the Breakfast Club that well? I mean, it's kind of a...
No, I haven't ever seen it.
Oh, fuck, it's like a defining movie of my generation, I think, if you're a teenager then. But they hook up, but it's not sexual. It's not about slamming someone in the bathroom. It's about two kids.
Yeah.
It's about two kids getting together. And it's not really, lovey-dovey shit. But there was no emphasis on sort of just slamming chicks, that was a great idea. But then, when I got into 18, 20, I mean, that's pretty much all we tried to do. So,
well, maybe it's got something to do with, as I was saying before, about how everyone is so interconnected and cities are so much more dense that we have an abundance. And, looking at marriage and relationships is sort of less important now because there's so many people around you that it's really not statistically difficult to get into a relationship.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean a happy one, but a relationship.
Yeah,
So,
it's just this...
Yeah, maybe that's got something to do with it.
Or the obsession with the individual and this whole generation of people who think their feelings are really important, right? That your lived experience is the most paramount thing, that facts and evidence and that group harmony is much less important than the individual me. And so if you're just obsessed with that, then family doesn't have that much appeal, does it? Because family
No.
implies sacrifice for others, at least on
Yep.
some level, and for the man, usually more sacrifice than anyone in that relation. And that's why that's where the Prager sort of video loses out, doesn't it? Because what it doesn't address is that, yeah, I understand the benefits of sacrificing for other people, and there are benefits that can accrue to me for that, but the risks are so fucking high that
Yeah, exactly.
why would I undertake that, and put myself in that situation? I think that's where the Prager video lost a lot of young guys, especially.
I also do find that millennials, and yeah, I know everyone listening is going to hate me by the end of this, is that they're largely short-term thinkers,
Right.
and everything needs to be a quick fix. Now that might be wrong, because that's definitely the case in my generation as well. I don't know if that's the case for yours,
Well, see,
but it does seem to be prevalent attitude in today's day and age.
so you grew up from the time you were dating when you were in high school. You probably had mobile phones and texting people, right?
I was never any good at dating anyone in high school, but yeah, that's what everyone
Well,
else
that's what
did.
everyone was. So, well, when I went to high school, if you went out on a date, you arranged it in person and you met them somewhere, or you picked them. That in the beginning you described about how a guy would come,
Yeah.
would ring up, and then he would go around. I mean, I lived that when I got my driver's license. It was like 1990 or something like that. Now, mobile phones were around, but they were the size of house bricks, and hardly anyone had them,
Yeah.
and they didn't work, half the time. So, I mean, I literally did live in that world where you called up somebody's house on your home phone, and the parents answered a lot of the time, and you had a little chat to them. They had to figure out who you were, and you talked to them,
Yeah.
and then you put her on, and she had to stand there and talk, and she didn't have any privacy. And you went round and you picked her up, and you had to meet the parents. I mean, I lived that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that. There wasn't that immediacy. There was no internet at home when I was a kid.
Oh, no porn?
Nope.
How'd you survive?
Well, you had to get VHS tapes. That was pretty much it.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. So yeah.
You had a tough upbringing, mate.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think maybe scarcity is a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, and of course we know that there are problems today with young guys that think that because they've been brought up and learnt from porn, that they think that that's the way they're supposed to act with girls, it's totally bizarre to me, because as someone who was pre-porn, internet porn, like the difference between how sex actually happens and the difference between internet porn is vast chasm, right? It's not even.
Isn't
it's
it?
not even. So it's obvious to me that internet porn is not the way it happens, but it's really interesting to me that there's a generation of young people that think that internet porn is actually how sex happens. Maybe
Yeah, I've read studies that a lot of porn and masturbation can actually kill your confidence with women.
right.
I don't know why that's the case, but there is a lot of data to support that.
Well, Martin Dobney in the UK, I don't know if you know who he is. I think he writes for the Telegraph or the Mirror, or one of those. He gave a talk at the recent Men and Boys conference in London about the problems with boys who watch too much porn, because they're actually impotent. A lot of them have erectile dysfunction, which is something that usually strikes men when you get to my age and older, not being able to get it up.
Right.
But you've got like 15-year-old boys who should be just full of hormones and getting a hard on every 5 minutes, can't get it up. They can't. Some of them are actually reporting that they can't get it up with a real girl, because
Jesus.
that's how consumed by the porn they are, that it doesn't do anything
Yeah,
for
I've
them.
also heard of guys that can't have sex unless they're watching porn in the process.
Yeah.
Like, what the
Yeah.
fuck?
So that's a lot. Well, these guys, I think there was a movie with there was a movie about that. Remember that movie with Scarlett Johansson and the guy from Inception a few years ago now. Not DiCaprio, the other guy. He's Offsider. who I think is a self-avowed feminist in real life.
I can't. Everyone in Hollywood's a feminist.
Thin,
yeah, I can't think of it.
He's a thin, dark-haired guy. Anyway, his whole thing was that he was masturbating to porn, and then he hooked up with Scarlett Johansson, who's this really hot chick, and she tried to change him and do all these things, but he still couldn't stop batting off to porn, and she got all upset about it. It's not a bad movie actually, but yeah, that's. I guess we're getting off the track here, but. Have we got anything else to say?
Yeah, we're going somewhere with
We
this.
were going somewhere with it, probably. But right now, people are listening going, well, what the fucking finish your thought, dickhead.
I think we were just talking about how dating has changed from your generation to my generation.
Right. So, yeah, I think, as I said, it used to happen. I used to go around, I had my P plates, and you knocked on the door and you had to talk to the old man and the old lady, and it was that's the way it happened.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago, so I didn't grow up in this, and I grew up in this generation where if you said, "Hey guys, we're going out for dinner to a restaurant," and it's 7:30, there was no oh, I'm going to be 10 minutes late. Oh, we're in the car. There's none of that, because you're either there or you're not, because there's no phones. There's no phones. You had to be there. And so I'm kind of weirded out by this generation that sort of thinks, oh, yeah, there's a thing starts at 7:30. Okay. So to me, that means I get there at 7:25 or 7:20. But it seems fine for people if 7:30 means, 7:45, 7:50, doesn't really matter, which to me is annoying. And that just goes to show you how old I am.
See, if I go out on a date with a chick and she's anything more than 10 or 15 minutes late, the second she gets here, I'll say, if you're late again, there won't be another date. But let's just have a good night anyway. So I call them out on it and just say, this is not on, because there's nothing I hate more than people wasting my time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that...
Like I should invoice her for my time.
well, that's what I think. It's like, if I remember actually I got called by a girl once. I was waiting for this is in Japan. I'd been waiting 10 minutes, and she said, oh, I'm actually going to be another 25 minutes. Is that okay? And I went, no, it isn't. See ya. Hung up, walked away.
Yeah, I've had that happen to me as well. She fucked me around for probably 30 minutes and was like, oh, the cab went the wrong way. And I don't know if she was just making excuses or not, but yeah, I just shot her a text message saying, it's all right, don't bother, I'm heading off.
There's no need to be rude about it. It's just like, yeah, well, because what they've done, I mean, I always say this to young blokes, is what they've done you a favour. They've shown you who they are.
Exactly.
They've shown you that they're unreliable. They've shown you that they don't really have that much respect for you if they're going to do that. Because if you're on a date and you actually want to meet someone and impress them, then you will make sure that you get there on time. And if you know that the traffic takes 20 minutes, well, you'll leave 35 minutes early because there might be a fuck up. That's what you do. That's what...
And the flip side to that is by you calling her out on her bullshit, you're showing that you've got strong boundaries. And strong boundaries are a trait of a highly confident guy. And that's also very polarizing. Like, she's going to be put off by that. It's either going to really piss her off or she's going to be really attracted to you. So, yeah, you might lose her in the process. And if you do, as you said, it's a fucking fantastic thing. But if you don't lose her because of it, she's going to be even more interested in you as a result.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I said this before. It's kind of like the power of the king is not that he can have anyone killed. His real power is that he can spare their lives. And I don't know if this analogy works, but I think it does. When the real power of a guy is, even though you can get laid, that you pass it up because you stick with your principles and that you're not going to compromise them just to get laid. You're not going to lower yourself, lower your standards for some girl that you don't really like, or that she's pissed you off in some way, but you just don't want to get laid. If you can walk away, you've got balls.
It reminds me of that quote from Bill Burr. You may not get laid, but you can rub one out like a man. It's a champagne of success.
Exactly. And that is, I guess, the beauty of the internet age is that, I've always got that porn clip I wanted to watch when I go home.
Yeah, exactly.
and that anticipation that you can build up in your mind about a girl, for hours on, what's it going to be like, and blah blah. If you just rub one out, that all just goes away, and all of a sudden you have a clear head. It's as though a fog has been lifted just because you emptied your sack. Because half the time, that's all it's about.
So that's actually a tip I teach some of my clients. If you're really keen to hook up with a chick and you're about to go on a date, just have a tactical wank beforehand and you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, that's an old trick, that one. That's the old what was that? Something about Mary. Remember when Ben what's his name?
Oh yeah, it was too. Ben Stiller
gets it in his hair.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's a good place to end it, on a wank.
Yeah.
On a wank. Well, I want to thank you for that. It's up to about an hour 10. So we will. Did you want to? I don't know how public you are, but did you want to promote your business or anything?
I usually would, but I'm not ready to get doxxed yet. I think there's probably enough information out on my Twitter and just comments I've made that you could probably figure out with a bit of Googling and an intelligent mind. But once my new business's website is up, I might actually do a reveal, but time will tell. So what I'd recommend, there's a few coaches who do some really, really good content, and there's only a handful, so I'll just give them a shout out. Nick Sparks from Sparks of Attraction, he's very, very good. Pat Stedman, who's a very close friend of mine, he's based out of New York. And then a guy named Mark Manson. He wrote a book called Models. So even if you're in a relationship, I'd encourage you to read that book. It's absolutely fantastic.
Righto. Maybe I will listen back to this and put the links in the description if I can be asked.
Yep, sweet.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on, and just stay on the line as we take this out. Thanks, mate.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, mate.
Good one.